Hello and welcome. I'm Tom Burges Watson. You're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Arabiya news headquarters. These are our top stories. The Israeli military carries out a massive airstrike on the Hezbollah headquarters in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Israeli television networks saying that the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was the target of that strike. Israel's aerial bombardment across Lebanon has resulted in the deaths of close to 800 people during the course of these last 5 days. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country is, quote, winning the war. He made those comments in his address to the UN General Assembly. Welcome to you. We begin with that breaking news from the southern suburbs of Beirut, where the headquarters of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has been hit by a massive airstrike. This happened in the last hour or so, and the explosion was so powerful, there are reports that it was felt 30 kilometers away. Well, since the start of this week, Israel has been carrying out airstrikes across Lebanon in a bid to put a stop to what's been more than 11 months of Hezbollah fire into its territory. Well, the death toll from these past 5 days there in Lebanon is reported to be close to 800. Well, for more analysis, I'm joined here in the studio by the editor of the Arabiya news channel, Wissam. Keyrouz. Wissam, thank you very much indeed for coming to talk to us. What's the latest you're hearing?
Well, despite the fact that we are in front of a huge moment of truth for a whole nation, Lebanon, now the moments we are living now is to determine whether the leader of Hezbollah, the much talked about Hassan Nasrallah, is alive or he is safe. And the consequences of this has the potential to be enormous, not only for Lebanon, but for the region as a whole. So the latest is that we know the Israelis are saying he was in the building, according to sources on the ground, that the decision to target this building or this compound underground was taken immediately so that Hassan Nasrallah can be eliminated. And the thing is that we have 6 buildings, six whole buildings that has been destroyed. We can think of a huge human cost for this operation. And some sources on the ground in the hospitals, they are saying that hospitals are not receiving any wounded people. It's like if all the people who have been hit, they kind of disappeared, because the kind of missile or bomb that was used, the MK-84, says some military experts, is the kind of bombs that was designed to target very deep bunkers like the likes of Tora Bora in Afghanistan.
Okay, so an explosion on a scale that we just haven't seen before there in Lebanon, something really out of the ordinary.
Never seen before, never seen before. Our sources on the ground, as like you said, 30 kilometers away, people in Beirut and other parts of Beirut, they felt, a shaking that have never been felt before.
Lots of speculation, isn't there, about where Hassan Nasrallah is in ordinary times, especially right now, because, of course, was he or wasn't he in the compound when that explosion happened? I mean, it's a very well-kept secret, isn't it, where Hassan Nasrallah actually is based. Some people say he's not even in Lebanon.
I was one of those people who believed that this target is too precious for the Iranians to keep him in Lebanon. After 2006, he was barely seen very, very few times. And when 2006 war ended, he said that I kept on being in my apartment on the 4th floor in the southern suburb of Beirut, never left my place. That's what he said. Now I doubt very much that he's in such a place, and many were feeling that he's not even in Lebanon.
And when that explosion happened an hour or so ago, funerals were taking place in that same part of Beirut, Aviv, I think it's called.
Yes.
And those funerals were for Hezbollah militants who'd been killed during the course of the last few days. And when we look at what's happened to Hezbollah during the last 10 days or so, the pagers, the walkie-talkies, these targeted strikes, they've been really severely weakened, haven't they?
Well, let's say that the Israelis have finally the enemies they were prepared for. And when the 7th of October happened in Gaza, they were facing a completely out-of-the-box incident. They were being told that these people are preparing for an attack from the south. They never believed it. They have always believed the attack will come from the north and from Hezbollah. And after 1 year now, they have finally the enemy they were prepared for. This is why they seem to know everything. They seem to be able to hit a target whenever they decide to hit it. They seem to have very deep knowledge into the security apparatus of Hezbollah. And this is why they are being, they have the upper hand, big hand. The Israelis have the upper hand. And this is why we can understand why Netanyahu is so reluctant to go into any kind of truce.
Okay, well, stay with us if you can, Wissam, because I'm just going to bring into the conversation Israel's former advisor and peace negotiator for Israel, Daniel Levy. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Israeli television network saying the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was the target of that attack. I'm just wondering what you're hearing from where you are about this attack and the intelligence behind it.
Well, first of all, I think that the network of your sources are going to be well informed. You'll be making your own calculations. But if we step back, Israel is on stronger ground when one talking about intel, tech, and infiltration. And Hezbollah has clearly been infiltrated in ways that Hamas has not been. We saw what Israel failed to achieve, 11 months of attrition against Hamas, in terms of restoring this sense of the power, the mythological military status. It has to some extent achieved in Lebanon with a terrorist act, actually, with the Beepers, a mass maiming event, and with what it is doing. But here's the thing. The ease with which the hubris kicks in, the overreach kicks in. One gets high on one's own supply, as one say. One drinks one's own Kool-Aid, and you think that you have the other side on their knees. There is a very big difference between degrading a movement and incapacitating a movement. And I would argue that we are in the throes of degradation, not incapacitation. The missiles will still hit Israel. Israel has far less of a resistance economy and other aspects of life, if you like. Israel is more fragile in that respect, and Israel cannot return its residents to the north if the missiles continue to come in. The other thing just we should all bear in mind is one hypes up leaders as being irreplaceable until they no longer exist and they are replaced. I don't know what the fate of any particular leader is at the moment. I don't know if any of us do. I think we might find out soon enough. But the idea that you remove that one person and that this is a strategic change to the whole equation is something that has been tried and tested and failed. It doesn't work that way.
Just hearing the Lebanese Prime Minister accuse Israel of waging what he's called a genocidal war there, and that reaction came in the aftermath of that attack in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Supposing Hassan Nasrallah was inside that building, I mean, is that the sort of development that could either trigger a massive escalation, or is it the sort of thing that could actually draw a line under this conflict, because Israel could then show to the Israeli Prime Minister could show the people that we've achieved something, a mission accomplished, and would that be the end of it, or do you see this the opposite happening in an escalation?
Look, anyone who thinks that Netanyahu wants to bring this to a close and that whether ideologically or politically he is happier outside of wartime is not paying attention. The ideology, the personal politics, the coalition politics in Israel all align, and they align towards open-ended war. Now, what the Lebanese Prime Minister said is important in the context of what Prime Minister Netanyahu said earlier today. He claimed we're not against the Lebanese civilians, this isn't about you, but he said the following. He said there is a missile in every kitchen, a rocket in every garage. That's exactly the same justification that was used to obliterate Gaza, to go disproportionately against the civilian population, to do what is being accurately, I think, called a genocide. If there's a missile in every kitchen, then every home is a legitimate target. That is exactly the same language, and that is why I think there's a genuine legitimate concern The Dahiyya doctrine, if you remember from 2006, this is when Israel devised this idea that you destroy whole civilian areas and that's okay. And America has allowed Israel to get away with this. I think if you flip the equation for a minute, where Israel begins to get bogged down is the missiles continue also in the opposite direction. The capacity to do that still exists. If that happens, and if Israel has walked itself up a ladder with its escalatory rhetoric, then the pressure builds for a ground incursion. If there is a ground incursion, then the dynamic shifts. Then it's Israel, I think, that sees that asymmetric warfare can be used against it. And that's when it gets bogged down. And that's the slope, the slippery slope we are on. I don't think it's too late to pull back from that, but I do think that's the direction we're traveling in.
It doesn't seem like Prime Minister Netanyahu is really listening to anybody, not his allies, not anybody. Who would he listen to?
Can I be a bit cheeky and flip the question and say, if someone told you don't do something and you went ahead and did it, and they showered you with gifts when you did it, and they went out in the United Nations, I'm flipping from you back to the politics of real life here. America sends the weapons, billions more guaranteed. America goes to the UN, provides diplomatic cover for Israel, puts out political plans. Israel embarrasses the Americans, rejects those plans, and yet America still sides with Israel, still joins Israel in the battle of narratives. There's no pressure. There's no American pressure. America is the indispensable participant in this war on Israel's side. It's not just Israel's war, it's America's war. And the interesting thing, and let me close by saying this, is Israel in these last months has shown how reliant it is on the US, but at the same time, it has embarrassed and therefore geopolitically weakened the US. And I would suggest that's not a smart place for it to be.
Yeah, and just building on what you're saying there, the US saying it didn't have any advanced warning of that Israeli strike. Thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Dan Levy, former Israeli peace negotiator. Thank you very much indeed. Here with me in the studio is the Al Arabiya editor, Wissam Keyrouz. Wissam, we're hearing from the Al Manar television network, which I believe is aligned to Hezbollah.
It's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
It's Hezbollah's mouthpiece.
Hezbollah's mouthpiece. Yeah. They are saying one person was killed, 50 others were injured in that attack. That sounds very difficult to believe when you see the size of the explosion. It seems almost incredulous.
Yeah, we are talking about 6 buildings, but we assume that a lot of people living there were not there because a lot of the people fled. And this HQ of Hezbollah is believed to be 14 floors under the ground, under the civilian buildings and infrastructure. So one dead seems, in any cases, a very, very weird, thing. But as I said, people who are there standing in front of hospitals, photographers, video men, they are saying we don't see any injured arriving, and this is very weird.
Indeed. And I just want to ask you, I mean, of course, Hassan Nasrallah and his group Hezbollah are not universally loved, are they, in Lebanon? I mean, no one's speaking out against them at the moment, but we know that behind the scenes, not every Lebanese person supports them. Were Hassan Nasrallah to have been killed, supposing he is killed, what would that change and how would people react, do you think, in Lebanon?
Well, in every major war that Lebanon has faced, it was a challenge and it was a test for the nation. Lebanon is a nation of confessions, of religions. And to make it in very simple terms, in this war, you have the Shia population fleeing their homes and coming to seek refuge with the Christians and Sunnis and Druze. So Lebanon is happening again somehow in the wars. But there is a big problem with the fact that the war of Hezbollah is ideological, People, they are taking, for many of the people in Lebanon, especially the Shiite, for them it's resistance against Israel. But at the end of the day, Israel is not in Lebanon anymore. There is a place called the Sheba Farms who are, for Lebanon, they are occupied. But also the fact that Hezbollah was saying our arsenal is a deterrent for Israel. So where is this deterrence now? Israel has been killing and bombarding and doing whatever it wants in Lebanon. So the very argument of deterrence has been obliterated. And this is why I said in the beginning of this talk, it's a big moment of truth. The people of Hezbollah will have now, even if Hassan Nasrallah is not dead, he is not dead, but probably a lot of the whole leadership is dead. And they are already dead in the many strikes that happened. It's a moment of truth. Will this, fact of taking Lebanon hostage of an agenda that is widely believed to be an Iranian agenda, will it hold after all what happened? Will there be enough resistance in the Lebanese political parties to change? And will it be enough for many of the Shiite people in Lebanon to join the others in taking a new way forward? I'm not very optimistic, honestly, but this has to happen. And otherwise, the worst case scenario is on the table, which is much more tension internally.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us, Wissam Keyrouz, editor of the Arabiya news channel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, for more, we can speak now to a Middle Eastern analyst and director of the Institute of Political Science at St. Joseph University in Beirut, Sami Nader. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. There was this huge explosion, we've been talking about it here, targeting the Hezbollah headquarters in Beirut. As we've been saying, the like of which no one has ever seen there in Lebanon, at least not in recent times. Did you feel it?
Not only I felt it, however, I saw while I was going to the location I'm in here, I saw a column of smoke, several columns of smoke hovering over southern of Beirut, something unprecedented, never seen, at least never seen in Lebanon, not even since the war started on October 7, but even in 2006, we haven't seen any spectacle of that scale and a strike of that intensity. And now when we're looking how many buildings, has been said, 6 buildings, totally flattened in one military strike, I mean, this is something that is of a different scale, of a different intensity, and definitely a dangerous turn in the course of recent military developments.
Okay, we understand that one person was killed. That's what the Al-Manar news agency is saying. 50 people injured. That does sound, doesn't it, like on the low side, given the intensity of that explosion. And obviously, all the speculation at this stage is about who was inside that building that was struck. I mean, what are people saying at this stage?
I mean, people are still under shock, especially that some unconfirmed news said that Mr. Nasrallah was the main target. So this, I mean, this, as you may guess, this is a very dangerous speculation, and this is a very dangerous turn, given the potential it has to propel not only Lebanon and Israel into full-blown war, but the whole region. Because if this is not a red line that has been crossed, what will be the red line? And if this is the case, this would, in my view, will drag Iran into the picture. Because if this is not enough for Iran to get involved, so what then is required for Iran to retaliate? Bearing in mind that when we're talking about Mr. Nasrallah, we're talking about the head of the pyramid of the most important asset Iran has in the region, because this would put at stake, I mean, the whole Iranian project in the region. And this is why I think this is a major turning point, and not to mention the repercussion inside Lebanon. Because already we're seeing, some provocation, some sectarian rifts in the country, and this actually does not bode well for Lebanon stability. Put aside, the impact of the war Israel is waging, the wave of displaced, the amount of disruption, all this is putting enormous pressure on Lebanon, especially that comes at a very critical moment where the economic situation is in dire state. Lebanon has been going through 4 consecutive crises for the last 4 years, starting with the economic and financial collapse in 2019, followed by the COVID thing, then the Beirut port blast that destroyed practically 1/3 of the capital. And then now we're into a war similar to that of 2006, not to mention the Syrian refugees problem, the spillover of the Syrian war. All these crises are piling up and putting enormous amount of risk for Lebanon. The very idea of Lebanon is at stake. How Lebanon, we know how we went into this war, but I'm not sure how we will come out of it with a society that is very fractured, a very deep political divide, plus the dire economic situation we're going through.
Indeed. Just briefly for our viewers, the pictures we've been looking at while you've been speaking are in fact live pictures just coming into us here at Al Arabiya, showing what appears to be a rescue team on the scene where those 6 buildings collapsed just in the last hour and a half or so after being hit by an enormous explosion. It's understood that the Hezbollah Central Command, the Hezbollah Central Headquarters, was hit. And it's not clear who is inside. We're receiving mixed reports with regards to the safety of the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. Various reports suggesting he's safe, and Israeli media saying he was the intended target of that. Sami, just coming back to you, this is the latest example of Hezbollah being dealt a very unexpected surprise. It began with the pagers, and there were the walkie-talkies, and we've had these targeted killings. Even as that explosion took place, funerals were being held there in Dahiyeh for militants who'd been killed in the last couple of days. How seriously degraded or weakened would you say Hezbollah has been by these last few days?
I'm not a military expert, and I'm not sure about how, the impact or what remains from Hezbollah arsenal. But what I'm sure of as an observer, this is the most severe blow Hezbollah got since its very inception in the 80s. And as a politist or as an analyst, I would say that the real blow was a psychological blow. The blow Hezbollah has taken in terms of image. Keep in mind that this organization went out victorious in 2006, and it was hailed in all the Arab streets as the military organization who managed to defeat one of the strongest armies, not in the region, but in the world. And this excess of power, Hezbollah used inside Lebanon, but in the region, and it turned into one regional player. So the blow they took, rises today a lot of question about what remains of this image of invincible military organization about whether this organization still has the capability to keep on this escalation track, and about its ability to wage a full-blown war against Israel. Because they have been saying, Mr. Nasrallah has been saying that they don't want this war, but they are ready for it. And after this consecutive attacks on Hezbollah political and military commandments, what we have seen in terms of exposure of their own logistics system, of all their modus operandi, their operating system. I mean, this, raises some very serious questions.
Okay. Sami, I'm sorry to cut you short. I'm sorry to cut you short. We're out of time. We're going to have to move on. I'm really sorry, but really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Sami Nader at Saint Joseph University in Beirut. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we can cross now to two of our correspondents in the field. We've got Sarah Coates standing by for us in Tel Aviv, and in Beirut we've got Al Arabiya's news producer, Will Trafford. Will, let me start with you since you're in Beirut. Just tell us what you felt and how far away you are from Dahia, where that explosion took place.
Yeah, I didn't hear too much of what you asked there, but I guess it was around what we felt, and the best descriptors you could have: bone-chilling, blood-curdling. Locals you speak to here say that it hasn't been this bad. They haven't felt an explosion like that since the Hezbollah-Israel war in 2006. It was a really strange sort of environment because obviously we've had these explosions happening outside Beirut, and that's had nerves obviously in an elevated sort of state. This, of course, comes at 6:20 at night. When people are going home from work, they're going to the bars and the restaurants. And let me tell you, the bars and the restaurants now, they are absolutely empty. I was in my hotel room at the time. It lasted for about 40 seconds. Most people here would say it felt like an eternity, to be perfectly honest. We're hearing that there was around 20 projectiles that went into that supposed base, according to Israeli intelligence, in Hadek. It felt obviously a lot closer, everyone pouring out onto the streets, as you can imagine, everyone on their phones. That initial moment of terror, you know, the Israelis say they're coming to get the terrorists. You ask people here, you could ask who they felt was executing the terror. But as we sort of got onto the streets, that characteristic Lebanese spirit of the initial terror on the phones, asking if everyone's okay, to that sort of thing of supporting each other and kind of taking care of each other. So there is a little bit of heartening, but obviously devastating for so many of those people. We're now hearing 7, potentially 8 buildings have collapsed in the area.
Indeed. I mean, extraordinary explosion, incredibly powerful. And as we were saying earlier, I mean, hard to fathom that it was felt 30 kilometers away. Sarah, in Tel Aviv, let me cross to you. And I just want to know what people there are saying about what happened in Beirut this evening.
Hello there. Well, everyone I've spoken to is certainly aware about this. I'm talking aware of this, I should say. I'm talking about just your everyday person on the street. There certainly is a high level of worry after this latest strike in Dahia. And we have heard from the IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi. He's actually come out to say that there's a high level of readiness as Israel awaits a response from Hezbollah. So this is, of course, a major concern. We do understand that Israel was chasing Hassan Nasrallah, according to Reuters. He is alive, but once again, this is just yet another major escalation. And we also have a Pentagon statement just over the last few minutes coming out to say that the strike, there was no advanced warning of the strike from the Israelis to the Americans, saying that the Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, that he spoke on the phone to the Secretary of Defence, Lloyd Austin, as the strike was ongoing. Now, what we can tell you is that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he was, of course, in New York. He'd only just addressed the UNGA just a couple of hours before this happened. he is now on his way back to Israel, or leaving very, very soon. And this is pretty unusual for an Israeli official to travel on Shabbat.
Indeed. And I just want to go back to Beirut and ask our producer, Will, who's there, standing by for us. You were saying earlier you felt that explosion. It lasted, you said, 40 seconds. I mean, there have been explosions, presumably, throughout the course of the last day. Has that been a fairly regular occurrence during the course of the last day or two?
I think pretty early on, you knew the gravity of what this was. I've only been here a couple of days, right? And you hear the ricocheting of the weapons outside of Beirut in general. This was such a profound thump. And the instant thought is this near me? Where are we right now? Everyone is obviously jumping under tables and this kind of thing. So it was so clear that it was so different. And, you know, obviously I wasn't here in 2006. So you say to the locals, have you had anything like this? And they all say, not since 2006. It was so profound. And to sort of describe it, you almost feel like it's moving through your whole body. It is terrifying.
Yeah, it's extraordinary because while you've been talking, we've been looking at rescuers on the scene in Dahya where that explosion happened, combing through the remains of 6 buildings, as you've been saying. And yet we're being told that only 1 person's confirmed to have been killed, 50 others injured. I mean, it doesn't really tally, does it, with the kind of explosion that you and others have described to us?
I think the other thing as well, right, is that, you know, Hezbollah, maybe they don't want to talk so quickly, right? Because obviously they're checking their facts as to what is going on before they make a statement. So the Israelis are saying, you know, Hassan Nasrallah is being the focus of the attack. I guess, obviously, as the day goes on, perhaps they will have the opportunity to get closer to those blast sites. It doesn't seem to tally, but obviously the scale of the devastation is such that recovering people in these kind of situations, it will be a longer than a shorter task.
Yeah, we've got Hezbollah announcing that a senior official by the name of Hashem Safieddine is in fact alive as well. So it's another senior figure, as well as Hassan Nasrallah, who we're being told is safe as well. So it doesn't sound, Sarah, as though perhaps the strike was successful from an Israeli point of view in neutralizing, for lack of a better word, the people that Israel would have liked to see killed in that explosion. Sarah, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I just was saying that it doesn't sound as though perhaps this was necessarily the mission accomplished that Israel might have wanted it to be, given that we're being told that senior figures from Hezbollah are indeed alive and well.
Yeah, certainly unclear at this hour as to whether these senior figures did survive or not. But what we do know, according to Israeli media, Hebrew media here in Israel, is that the Israeli military used bunker-busting bombs. These are very heavy bombs designed to really go down pretty deep. And as we've heard from the spokesperson of the IDF, he said that this was targeting a Hezbollah command centre. So still unclear as to if anyone from Hezbollah was actually killed in this strike. But other figures coming in, unverified figures, saying that right now 14 people have been identified as killed in this latest round of strikes in that southern suburb of Beirut. And this is just extremely, extremely concerning, especially once again, given that a number of pictures were also circulating on social media showing Benjamin Netanyahu purportedly in his hotel room in New York, ordering and sort of directing all of this just after he'd spoken at the UN General Assembly. Now, Israel once again has been really using this amplified rhetoric over these past few months. They've been saying that these attacks on Hezbollah will not stop, that Israel will continue going after these senior Hezbollah leaders, as we've really been seeing over these past few weeks. I think it was back in July, the first targeted strike, and that was on Fuad Shakur in Beirut. So this is really becoming a pretty regular pattern, but this time a major escalation.
Indeed, and as we've been saying with our other guests this evening, Israel has carried out a number of blows to Hezbollah during the course of the last 10 days or so, which began with the pagers, then there was the walkie-talkies, and now these targeted strikes. And Sarah, just staying with you for a moment, Israel's moved thousands of troops, we understand, to the border. Does it look likely from where you sit that Israel is indeed planning to go ahead with a ground invasion there in Lebanon?
Well, certainly there are ominous signs pointing that this could potentially be the next move. Israel's been, as we've seen, carrying out these very heavy strikes against what it says are Hezbollah targets in the south of Lebanon, also in the east, in the Bekaa Valley, over the course of the last week or so. So this is very, very troubling, given that these two additional reserve brigades have been called up to that northern border. We've seen many pictures coming in of tanks being moved up there, troops on the ground, boots on the ground. But in saying that, we have to remember that Israel, of course, does have the aerial advantage, the advantage from the sky, but it would be potentially a completely different story if it were to go in on the ground, given the capabilities of Hezbollah and the way that Hezbollah has really been able to train over, the last decade since the 2006 Second Lebanon War. We're talking about some 100,000 or so fighters. They're battle-hardened, they're heavily armed, and they are ready. And that's what we've been hearing also from Hezbollah. So certainly this could be a turning point. This is a major, major concern. And once again, we are hearing from Israeli officials that they're basically preparing now for an escalation.
And Will, in Beirut, I just want to ask you for your perspective, if you can still hear me. Does it feel in Lebanon, are people saying it feels like we are in a situation where a ground invasion could be imminent?
I guess at this point, people are sometimes asking us that, right? They say to us, you're a Western journalist. They say things like, how is America, how is the United Kingdom allowing this to happen? Why are they funding these weapons? Why are they preparing to take expats out of Lebanon whilst they're providing these weapons to Israel? Our colleague Hadley Gamble spoke to Walid Jumblat a couple of days ago, right? And they were talking about this idea of a ground invasion by Israel. And he said, whilst there might be maybe some people, some factions in Lebanon that might welcome that to sort of take care of Hezbollah if you want, be careful what you wish for, because Israel, the Israelis have come here before and it hasn't gone well before. So if you're thinking it'll go well now, dream on.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. So thank you to Will Trafford in Beirut. Thank you as well to Sarah Coates. Great speaking to both of you. And thank you for bringing us the very latest on those developments in Lebanon and seen from Israel's perspective. Well, let's speak now to Hanin Ghadar, who is a senior fellow at the Washington Institute. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us at very short notice. I'd like to just start by asking for your perspectives and your reaction to this fast-moving situation in Lebanon.
Well, we don't know anything yet, right? So until we have an official statement by Hezbollah, which has been delayed, interestingly, we're not sure. Well, on the first level, on the news level, we still haven't had a confirmation. It's almost an hour or more after the news came out. If he is still alive, and if he was somewhere else and he's still alive, we would have heard immediately. We would have heard that he's still alive. He would have came up, spoke, or the official statement would have come earlier. The fact that it's delayed is very interesting in the sense that he could have been there. And if he could have been there, it means that it would be very, very surprising if he survived this blast. It's huge. And in any case, even if he survived, many others didn't. And on the other level, in terms of succession, let's take the scenario that he did not survive. In terms of succession, if others were him, the two possible successors of Hassan Nasrallah are Safiyuddin and Qasim. So in this case, if they were with him, they will have a serious succession problem there would be no real leadership of Hezbollah. And if they survived and he didn't, then one of them would be the successor. And I wrote a succession paper a couple of years ago about Hezbollah's system and how succession works. Hassan Nasrallah is still liked by some of his community because he is charismatic, and he's still linked to Hezbollah's golden days in terms of the achievements, in terms of the victories, the 2000 liberation, the 2006 quote-unquote divine victory. And Hezbollah is linked to that. Nasrallah is linked to these successes. Nasrallah carries with him the charisma and the history of Hezbollah's victories. The others do not, and the others cannot really talk in the same charismatic way that he is. And it will be very difficult for Hezbollah in terms of who's going to be the successor of Nasrallah. It's not easy to find someone charismatic like him and someone who has managed in the past to achieve victories for Hezbollah. It is exactly the same like Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani, when he was killed by the Trump administration in Iraq, it is true that the Quds Force and the IRGC is an institution, but it's also about the people. Qasem Soleimani was efficient. His successor is not. So that's why there was a lot of reshuffling of leadership and who takes what region and mission, and it weakened the Quds Force in the region, weakened Hezbollah in the same way, and shattered in a way the communication between the proxies of Iran. Nasrallah, if he is actually dead, this will bring further damage to the leadership, to the succession, and the next guy cannot really fill the shoes of Hassan Nasrallah in terms of charisma and in terms of his achievements for the party. So it is a big deal. The other question today is that if he is really dead, who is going to take the decision? Is it the IRGC, the Quds Force? Are the Iranians going to bring people into Lebanon to lead the dynamics of the war? Or is someone from Hezbollah suddenly will come out from the shadows and say, I am the guy? So there are so many questions. Sure. But the repercussions of his assassination would be huge for the party.
Yeah, indeed. And just to wrap up, we are hearing that Hashem Safieddine is in fact alive. That's what Hezbollah is saying. And the latest we're hearing from the Lebanese Health Ministry: 2 dead, 76 injured. That's according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. We're going to leave it there. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Hanin Ghadar, Senior Fellow at the Washington Institute. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Having me.
Well, that strike in Beirut came shortly after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to continue targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon. He said this as he addressed world leaders at the UN General Assembly. Well, the delegations of a number of countries walked out as Netanyahu took the stage. While defying calls for ceasefires in either Lebanon or Gaza, Netanyahu vowed to carry on fighting on both fronts. Well, in his speech, he singled out Iran, saying Iran was to blame. Well, for more, we can cross now to Mitch McCann, who is our correspondent who's in New York covering this story for us. Just tell us a bit more about what happened there at the UN General Assembly today.
Well, good afternoon from New York. That's right. Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in New York and spoke at the General Assembly this morning. When he walked up to the lectern, there was actually applause from the Israeli delegation and from people in the public gallery who Netanyahu later identified as families of the October 7 hostages. There was so much applause that the General Assembly president had to call order 3 to 4 times to get people to sit back in their seats. But as you mentioned, at the same time, a number of delegates stood up and walked out of the hall, presumably in protest of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. Now, that is a rare occurrence. We haven't seen that in the General Assembly in a number of years, so it is very rare, as I mentioned. And Benjamin Netanyahu started his speech by talking about some of the criticism that he had received from the international community at the UN this week. He said, I didn't intend to come here to New York this week. My country is fighting a war. But he said he did because of the lies and slander directed at Israel. And that really set the tone for what was a very energetic and defiant speech from Netanyahu at the UN.
OK, Mitch McCann in New York, thank you very much indeed for that update. We're going to have to leave it there just to say that the UN Special Coordinator in Lebanon is saying that all parties must urgently cease fire. So thanks to you, Mitch. That is all we have time for. Coming up next, we've got Riz Khan, and at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please do join my colleague Rosanna Lockwood for Global News Today.